Hello. We're here with Jennifer Buchanan. Imagine being able to improve your breathing, lower your blood pressure, improve your heart health, and relax muscle tension just by listening and singing along with your favorite tune. Jennifer Buchanan was 14 years old when she discovered the healing powers of music. She witnessed it transform her hospitalized grandfather. Of course, there is also a science behind music therapy. Buchanan has spent 30 years working with people of all ages from all walks of life. Today, her services are even more in demand as music is used to rebuild those disconnected from the pandemic. She is the executive director and past president of the Canadian Association of Music Therapists. Her new book, Wellness Well Played: The Power of a Playlist, launches October 10th on World Mental Health Day. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Debbie. Thanks for having me. Mm.
I'm so excited about this.
And isn't that true that during this pandemic we've been all seeking some ways for us to feel better, and for so many of us music's been one of those ways.
Yes, and I must say I went down a rabbit. There was a while there in 2020 where people were posting their 10 favorite album covers, and
Yeah.
and that was so much fun.
Right? I did the same thing, and I felt that it was impossible to put one of those albums or the 10 albums that you were doing without seeing your past in complete
Mm,
technicolor. Like, you could see everything. Yeah.
absolutely. So I have to admit,
Mhm.
until I met you,
Mhm.
I really never heard of a music therapist. It's a pretty big deal, isn't it?
Well, and you're not alone. There are approximately 1,000 certified music therapists across Canada. We have more than that within North America and, of course, throughout the globe. Um, but it is one of those professions that continues to grow, and, like you were mentioning, becoming more in demand, as particularly we're talking around mental health considerations and well-being, and just knowing how effective music can be for that. As music therapists, we're a guide. We are someone who sits side by side with patients, one on one or in small groups, and very similar to the realm of counseling. We're using music as a real viable tool to help people achieve those things that are so important to all of us, be it our improving our mood, uh, recalling positive memories that we can then use to move forward and feel a little more whole and together, and also to boost that productivity and motivation that many of us are needing to ensure our performance is still there, instead of us just hiding under the covers and feeling like I just want a nap. Yeah.
So, what were those emotions that you felt when you saw this work on your grandfather for the first
Mhm.
time?
You know, that story that I have told thousands of times, um, is such a signature moment for everything that I have continued to do. And the so to put into context, Oscar Buchanan was truly the most miserable um, elder I had met in my as a kid. Like, and he had a stroke. He actually had 2 strokes fairly close together, and the second stroke is what took him into long-term care. And you can imagine, already grumpy, a stroke doesn't make you any happier, ever. And now he was unable to walk, he was unable to talk. His face always looked so pained and anguished. And because my granny was essentially brilliant and wanted the family to always feel connected, it would be her that would say, to me as a young teen, knowing that I'd been practicing the guitar, knowing I'd been learning some songs, and her saying, Jenny, why don't you come in next Friday and sing your granddad's favorite song? And it sounds just so simple.
Hmm.
And it absolutely transformed my life because the shifting for him was that I would see the most miserable person on the planet soften and become warmer and begin to cry and reach out with his one good hand to touch my hand. Um, and the transformation for me was that I had experienced music in a way of how much I loved it and how it affected me personally. But to create connection in such a deep, meaningful way with another human, that's the career I want for the rest of my life.
Mm. So, it does sound like you have the best job in the world, but is it really as easy as it sounds, or it must
Um,
be a complicated process?
yeah. So, it's interesting because there's so many layers to that, Debbie. That's such a, um, so in some ways it's a hard job because when you show up at a hospital with a guitar on your back and you're going up the elevator and someone says, "Oh, it's so nice that you're here to entertain. Um, who are you going to go see?" And they're always surprised that you've been hired by this hospital or organization, that this is a career, that with a guitar on your back, you're gonna be going and doing some pretty deep, meaningful work with people who are in some of their greatest struggles of all time. They may have been in a motor vehicle accident. They may be in their last days of life. They may have been in long term care for 3.5 years and just don't know what this if this has any benefit to them whatsoever anymore. And those are the people we're going to see. And so how do you in an elevator conversation shift it from you just being the music lady showing up, you know, to by the end of today we will have had the opportunity to help strengthen people with their resiliency, with their renewed sense of dignity, with them remembering the best part of themselves and being able to bring that out. It's really difficult. So that's one place that's difficult. All that coupled with, we're talking about the arts. The arts are not, whether it's therapy or not, tends to not be an area where we put a lot of funding.
Mm.
Um, and when we do, it's very, very specialized and doesn't necessarily reach the broad masses at the time. And so creating a career where you're getting on the health services budget line, that's been an
Mm.
interesting journey, and we're seeing progress there, but there's still a lot more work to do. And then probably the most significant is explaining what you do. And music therapists, I mean, as great as it is, we're not the best at explaining exactly what we do. And because it is hard, it is so layered, it is so
Yeah.
complex, it is so nuanced. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of hard in it and a lot of great moments. Yeah.
So, what makes a good music therapist?
Ah, you know, that's so good. Um, you first of all, you need to be interested in being a healthcare worker.
Mm.
Um, in that way, it's about the working with other humans, as I was mentioning, in some of their challenges. And not to say that we also, like other therapies, work with people who are using therapy to as preventative health measures, but it is in that area of that health and wellness sphere. So um, and musicians, when we're musicians, it can be very much about us. You know, the songs we're creating, the moment, the music that we're going to share to the world. That's of our artistry, and the therapy part is 100% about the client needs. So it you have to be so curious about the human condition, the needs of people, um, as individuals, but also within the organizations that they are belonging to, and be so curious and innovative as to um, how could our services create those benefits that they're needing to achieve in, say, mental health or in rehab or another area of healthcare. Yeah.
So, how good of a musician do you have to be a music therapist? And you mentioned accreditation, so
Yeah.
you need some sort of degree or certificate.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, you have to be pretty good to be a music therapist to, yeah, and you have to have a good idea of all the different ways to use music. So it's not just listening to music, it's about creating music together. It's about using specific techniques for rehabilitation of speech, or to help someone's gait, finding the right tempos that will assist someone from feeling like feeling like they can't move an arm to all of a sudden they can find that beat, and connecting the neural pathways in the brain, having access to science, having access to art. And it's amazing that we can do that through school. A lot of my schooling was very specialized training. Um, and in Canada and throughout the world, it's predominantly a degree or a master's education. You're starting to hear that people are talking about a master's entry level in order to be a music therapist throughout the world. And our certification process is a board exam after you've done 1,000 hours of internship with a supervisor. Um, and I do think it's because it's so nuanced. Um, and simple. Like I keep saying, it's also the simplest thing. We all hear about how music can help people, but that doesn't make it easy. So the schooling helps with all of the complexities of it, taking this very simple concept and putting all the pieces together. We've got several schools across Canada and the US, North America, and they are with people who have been practicing a really long time. Yeah.
So, is music therapy also like a one-off, or is it
Mm.
a multi-session program?
Hmm. I would say that varies for people too. So with organizations, so there have been organizations that our company has served for 30 years. And the people within that organization may shift, but we're serving their mission
Mhm.
and meeting them. With individuals, we have seen a variety. And, you know, therapy is an interesting thing because people say, well, you shouldn't always need therapy. It should be for a short block of time and then you move forward. And yet, we've worked with some kids from the time they were 8 years old in the school system. And perhaps they were working on some specific skills at that point, and then we continue seeing them into adulthood. I'm thinking of someone in my head right now who I met when she was 8 years old, and we still see her.
Mm.
I believe she's almost 30 now, but her goals have shifted. But she still sees that the music therapy part can help her achieve those different goals. And going through these last couple of years in particular, just bringing some sense of comfort that she requires. So we have seen that really long-term care, long-term type of care over a person's lifetime, where the individual or the group, um, yeah, have shifted their perspective between some acute treatments to more preventative treatments, and then yeah, one-offs.
Hmm.
And we have been doing quite a bit of that over the last 18 months with frontline healthcare workers themselves who have seen us work with their clients. Um, that has been the greatest uptick to some of our work, has been the frontline workers go, I've seen how that's worked with these people I serve. I need it. Can I just see you for one session? And we have been doing several of those over the course of the last 19 months.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what it you are seeing people in some of their lowest moments. And so how does this work help you keep your spirits up?
Yeah. Um, Debbie, music just has that capacity, hey?
Mhm.
For all of us. So we use the same tool we're sharing a lot of the time. And um, as we meet people, they share their stories with us. And behind every song is an untold story until it's told. And we hear those all the time.
Mm.
I had a particularly uh, heart tugging moment for myself. We we as a team take typically a company closure during the Christmas to New Year's week. We typically close our work, and I got a call from one of the places that we work, which was the palliative care unit, the end of life unit, and they said, "Oh, can you just come in? Can somebody come in just for a very special case?" And I knew that I wasn't going to call my team. They were tired. We're still tired, but they needed a break for themselves. So I kind of grumbled a little bit and I went, oh, okay, because when people ask, we go. And I went into the palliative care unit, and a nurse met me at the elevators as I came off, and she began to tell me we were going to move quite quickly to the room I was going to be at. Full PPE at the time, the shield, the mask, the gown, the gloves, a guitar. You can imagine wiping down the guitar, like the whole thing. And I didn't know what I was heading into. And um, they also said you can't go in the room. So I had to go and stand at the door. So constraint, 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 like all these things, barriers, all of it. I was wearing a barrier. The door was a barrier. And they said that in the room would be a university student, a young student who had moved here from India
Mm.
approximately 2 years ago to go to university, and was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer during her second year. And they had been working very hard for the last 6 months to get her parents brought over during COVID. They were finally there in her last week. And I got to the door. I had no idea what I was going to do. And this is when you are so grateful for all your years of training and all your experiences. And so you are able to put a little bit of a veil, but a real transparent style permeated veil that you can still reach people, but be able to keep thinking through of what's next. And I learned quickly I didn't have to figure it out too hard because the mom knew exactly what she wanted. She said, "Would you please just play live music? I want the last thing my daughter to
Mm.
hear
Oof.
to be live music, and I want the last thing she sees is her parents dancing and
Oh,
happy."
wow.
Debbie.
Oof.
So just when I thought nothing was going to affect me and change me in this job, and there I was earlier just grumbling a little bit, I had to go to work, and I leave with an incredible story to share with people and a moment to remind myself just how powerful something so simple but not easy can be. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, you work with musicians too.
Yes.
And what do they take away from your sessions?
Yeah, we get very nervous when we have to work with musicians because the musicians are often way better musicians than we are, and that's but there's a difference around processing music and the music of our lives and our stories through that, and all of us can forget those moments, of something we went through and how music can anchor to that moment in our life. And then how can we bring that positive anchor into our current moment when we need it most? And I mean, these last 2 years have been really tough on musicians and all arts, all of our artists. Oh, I have thought about them so much. Um, I know many of them. And so being able to um, also be there in those
Right.
moments, um, with people, um, and offering a new way to look at music for our own health and well-being has been really positive too. So, yeah.
Hmm. So tell me about your new book. Is there not also an audio version to it, or is it
Not
an audio
yet.
book?
Oh, I've had people ask already. Oh man. And you know what? I think it's going to be a good one for an audiobook. So this book, it's my fourth book. It's called Wellness Well Played, and it's the power of a playlist. And it came at the perfect time in my life. I've written about purposeful playlists throughout my career, and I've definitely worked with people on their own, curating their own playlists for different things, different moods they might need, or just looking at their histories and their memories, talking about stories, getting them to share information with me through their music. Um, but I also realize how much fun I had growing up. Um, Debbie, do you remember our cassettes?
Oh
Do you
god, yeah. I had a ton of them.
right? Like how did you label yours? See?
I put them in alphabetical order.
Right.
And
Right?
same with my albums. I had like over 600 LPs, and I had Woodward's used to sell 3-tier record stands, and I would painstakingly put them in alphabetical order all the time. So that's how I found what it was.
Did you give any fancy names or did you share with
No.
friends? No.
Oh, hell no.
They were
You
all
mean you mean
your
share the
playlist.
albums with theirs?
Or share your cassettes. Did you make like
Oh, hell no. No, 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 no. That's like this is gold. That's like giving away my wallet. No way. Absolutely. I used to buy I had a Macintosh stereo system. Sorry. I you made me my nose run from your
no,
story.
it's good. I know we're still back in the palliative
I
care
know.
room and now we're trying to move. Yeah,
We're trying to stop our noses from running.
I know.
Um, no,
Hmm.
I bought this Macintosh stereo, and at that time in the 70s, it was a 7 grand stereo.
Oh,
So
holy.
I'm a music freak. So
Oh,
I had I used to buy the half mastered records, Like
Oh,
some of them were, not all of them, obviously,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they were expensive, but like for my favorite bands, like the Doobie Brothers, and there were
Oh,
some
yeah.
that I bought half mastered. And so, yeah, there's no freaking way those were. And when I moved, I got the liquor store boxes,
Yeah.
and I would pack them because they were the perfect size,
Oh,
and you can get them that they fit the album perfectly. I would have like, I don't know, God, 20 liquor store boxes to move, and I wouldn't let anybody stack them because I was so anal when I came to my records.
they were truly a part of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Um, so me growing up, I didn't have the same access at the time, and lots of it was just financial. Just did not quite have the same access. So I became latched to my cassette boombox radio, right? And would put the cassette in, and I believe it was the record button was even a little sticky, so I had to use my 2 thumbs in order to hit play and record just to try to get all my favorite songs on there and stop it in time so the anchor person didn't, come on, and because you just wanted it just to be your music. And so I created all these mixed playlists from any of the radio stations, which we didn't have a lot back then, and we still don't have enough, but now we can access through streaming. But at the time, you just did the best you can to collect all this information. And so where this book takes us is on our own journey and how personalized music has been. We talk about the history of where, all our loves and likes have come. And it moves us through several different ideas of how we can curate our own playlist today, for all the different needs that we might need. And then it adds in all the science, it adds in all the brain science throughout the
Mm.
entire book, and weaves it all together. It felt like a lot of flow for me putting this together, like the the 30 years of my work as a music therapist and then all my years growing up kind of just
Mm.
smushed all together into one book. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So, how does somebody participate in music therapy, either both as a musician and as a client?
Mhm. So so first of all, they can access a music therapist. So there is the World Federation of Music Therapy, WFMT, World Federation, where you can find music therapists throughout the world. In Canada, it's musictherapy.ca. In the United States, it's musictherapy.org. So you can contact someone and have a consultation with them on the phone as to what are your goals going to be. And um, really common things we hear are our loved one uh, has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's,
Mm.
and we're finding they're in that intermittent stage of um, knowing they're not remembering the way they used to, and then having a day where they do remember, and so a lot of frustrations coming in. So we might get a call like that. We may get a call from a musician who is going, okay, these last 2 years have been outrageously difficult for us. And I just need to express that. I just need to talk to someone who's going to give me an active listening ear, because I need to figure this out and I need to feel better because I know I'm not feeling good. And then we may also get a call from a parent who has a child who has been feeling particularly anxious, and that they are again looking for a counselor. They came across music therapy and they thought, I think this is going to work for them because they just absolutely are drawn to music. So we'll get calls, a variety like that. And what happens is we go in, and like all other therapists, you're doing a real assessment in the moment. You are um, putting together what's going to be the plan that you can work on together. Yeah, it could be. I've worked with many people in neuro rehab where there may be a physical instrument in between us, and we are working on specific movements,
Mm.
crossing the midline in front of us, and working with that brain connection, to as something as simple of looking at a favorite song, and dissecting it of what is it that's making it so special in your life, and is there a way where we can now take that information and add even more in, through music and other things in your world, identifying the feeling that you truly need. So it'll look different for everybody. Working with a room of 4-year-olds with autism versus working with youth at risk, with electric guitars around us. I mean, the space looks different, the instruments look different, the process is going to be different. Um, and that's also what makes this work forever interesting. I can remember when I started, I went, I'll give myself 5 years. I can't imagine making this longer than 5 years, because I just did not realize how robust this work can be. Yeah.
Wow. So I've got one last question for you. What music keeps your spirits up? What's on your playlist?
Oh, I'm sure it doesn't surprise you to hear it changes all the time. For the last 2 weeks, though, I have been tapping into my university um, love, which was Tracy Chapman.
Mm.
And I am hearing every lyric she wrote in a whole new way. And for me, she wrote for the times back then, but she's also written for the time right now for me. And so that's been really terrific. And then I've also been incredibly tuned in to what everyone else is feeling like they're drawn to at this point. Where have you been, Debbie? Before we go, I want to hear what's been calling out to you.
Well, I'm definitely a headbanger, but I'm also very eclectic. My music tastes go from everywhere from jazz to country to Judas Priest, who is my favorite band.
Mm.
But I've gone 1 month. I went to Manhattan Transfer concert,
Oh,
ACD concert, and Rodney Millsap concert. So it's all over the map.
yeah,
But my hard rock is and alternative rock is probably where
yeah,
I live the most because I find
yeah.
it so not necessarily the words to some of those songs because some of them aren't really
Mm.
great, but it's the upbeat lyrics, is the
Yeah.
guitar lick. Oh my god, the guitar licks just I mean, that to me, that's the ultimate orgasm. Is the
Right.
guitar is a metal guitar lick.
Right. Oh my gosh. And just see how you lit up fully. Like that, this is what happens.
Yeah.
And you've brought up one last point as we wrap up, just as people are thinking through their own music. Yeah, some of us are drawn more to the lyric. It's 100% why you choose the music you do. Some of it, it's going to be the the full orchestration of it all, and
Mhm.
and the bigness, that can come with an electric guitar, for example. And then some of us, it's going to be a certain tempo. You might be working at your desk and you need to have that certain tempo that's in the background, and the genre doesn't quite matter as much. And it's all these little pieces that we can look at more intentionally and use for our best selves, our best work lives, our best home lives, um, just by giving it some consideration. And coming back to the book, that's what I really hope this book does for people.
Well, I can't wait to read the book.
Well, you're getting a
Hear the book,
copy.
hear the book. I wanna hear the book too.
I know. Okay, but you're getting a copy, and yes, I'm
Aw,
gonna seriously look for that
sweet.
audiobook.
You
Okay.
bet. Well, thank you, Jennifer. This was so
Mm.
wonderful.
Thank you, Debbie.